Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final destination reader session of the week. We're going to continue reading Matilda by Roald Dahl. Remember, in red are your key words. I would like you now to say out loud some of the key words that you might write down or you might see on the slides in red. Well done. In blue will be the questions for you to answer. And remember, anything in green means it's time for you to write. Please check you have a copy of the story, a strategy prompt sheet, a pencil, and a piece of paper or your home learning book. Press pause if any of these pieces of equipment are missing, and then press play once you are ready. Well done. Let's begin. This is our final session of asking questions for this week. Remember that good readers ask questions as they read because it helps them to understand what is happening in the story, and it makes them want to read more. Also, remember that our questions aren't always answered in Destination Reader, so it's a little bit strange. Although I have been enjoying reading lots of the questions that you've emailed to the class mailbox. Vocabulary. Chasten. Your turn? Chasten is to have a restraining or moderating effect up to the darkest of places. My turn. Scarce. Your turn. Scarce. To make yourself scarce means to make yourself intentionally absent. I'm sure some of you might do that if somebody at home might ask you to help out with some of the chores. You might make yourself a little bit scarce. Our next word is brandish. Your turn. Brandish. This means to wave or flourish as a threat or in anger/excitement. Seize. Your turn. Seize, which means to take hold of suddenly and forcibly. And our last word, my turn. Quake. Your turn. Quake, which means to shake or to tremble. Right, we've covered our 5 key words or 5 pieces of vocabulary that we will come across throughout our chapter today. Let's move on. We're going to read page 32 today, The Ghost. I will read and you will follow along. Remember, you can use a ruler to follow along if it helps you. We will stop at points to ask questions. Make sure you've got your finger or your ruler ready at the start of the chapter. We're going to begin. There was comparative calm in the Wormwood household for about a week after the superglue episode. The experience had clearly chastened Mr. Wormwood, and he seemed temporarily to have lost his taste for boasting and bullying. Then, suddenly, he struck again. Perhaps he had had a bad day at the garage, and had not sold enough crummy second-hand cars. There are many things that make a man irritable when he arrives home from work in the evening, and a sensible wife will usually notice the storm signals and will leave him alone until he simmers down. When Mr. Wormwood arrived back from the garage that evening, his face was as dark as a thundered cloud, and somebody was clearly for the high jump pretty soon. His wife recognized the signs immediately and made herself scarce, so she's purposefully made herself as absent. He then strode into the living room. Matilda happened to be curled up in an armchair in the corner, totally absorbed in a book. Mr. Wormwood switched on the television. The screen lit up. The program blared. Mr. Wormwood glared at Matilda. She hadn't moved. She had somehow trained herself by now to block her ears to the ghastly sound of the dreaded box. She kept right on reading, and for some reason this infuriated the father. Perhaps his anger was intensified because he saw her getting pleasure from something that was beyond his reach. "Don't you ever stop reading?" he snapped at her. "Oh, hello, Daddy," she said pleasantly. "Did you have a good day?" "What is this trash?" he said, snatching the book from her hands. "It isn't trash, Daddy, it's lovely. It's called The Red Pony. It's by John Steinbeck, an American writer. Why don't you try it? You'll love it." "Filth," Mr. Wormwood said. "If it's by an American, it's certain to be filth. That's all they write about." "No, Daddy, it's beautiful. Honestly, it is. It's about—" "I don't want to know what it's about," Mr. Wormwood barked. "I'm fed up with your reading anyway. Go find yourself something useful to do." With frightening suddenness, he now began ripping the pages out of the book in handfuls and throwing them in the waste paper basket. We're going to stop there. I have some questions. What will stop Mr. Wormwood from boasting and bullying others? It says that he had kind of tamed down, so he's kind of taken a break from it, but that doesn't make me think that he's finished boasting and bullying others forever. What will happen that will make him stop doing this? And my second question, why is Mr. Wormwood so against Matilda reading books? It seems that it really bothers him. Whenever she's reading a book, he's not interested and he seems to be really rude to her about it. Let's continue. Fingers at the ready, and we're starting at Matilda froze. Matilda froze in horror. The father kept going. There seemed little doubt that the man felt some kind of jealousy. How dare she? He seemed to be saying with each rip of a page. How dare she enjoy reading books when he couldn't? How dare she? When he couldn't. That might answer my question. "That's a library book," Matilda cried. "It doesn't belong to me. I have to return it to Mrs. Phelps." "Then you'll have to buy another one, won't you?" the father said, still tearing out pages. "You'll have to save your pocket money until there's enough in the kitty to buy a new one for your precious Mrs. Phelps, won't you?" With that, he dropped the now empty covers of the book into the basket and marched out the room, leaving the telly blaring. Most children in Matilda's place would have burst into floods of tears. She didn't do this. She sat there very still and white and thoughtful. She seemed to know that neither crying nor sulking ever got anyone anywhere. The only sensible thing to do when you are attacked is, as Napoleon once said, to counterattack. Matilda's wonderfully subtle mind was already at work devising another suitable punishment for the poisonous parent. The plan that was now beginning to hatch in her mind depended, however, upon whether or not Fred's parrot was really as good a talker as Fred had made out. Fred was a friend of Matilda's. He was a small boy of 6 who lived just around the corner from her, and for days he had been going on about this great talking parrot his father had given him. So the following afternoon, as soon as Mrs. Wormwood had departed in her car for another session of bingo, Matilda set out for Fred's house to investigate. She knocked on his door and asked if he would be kind enough to show her the famous bird. Fred was delighted and led her up to his bedroom, where a truly magnificent blue and yellow parrot sat in a tall cage. "There it is," Fred said. "Its name is Chopper." "Make it talk," Matilda said. "You can't make it talk," Fred said. "You have to be patient. It'll talk when it feels like it." They hung around, waiting. Suddenly, the parrot said, "Hello, hello, hello." It was exactly like a human voice. Matilda said, "That's amazing. What else can it say?" "Rattle my bones," the parrot said, giving a wonderful imitation of a spooky voice. "Rattle my bones." "He's always saying that," Fred told her. "What else can he say?" Matilda asked. "That's about it," Fred said. "But it is pretty marvellous, don't you think?" "It's fabulous," Matilda said. Will you lend him to me, just for one night? No, Fred said. Certainly not. I'll give you all my next week's pocket money, Matilda said. That was different. Fred thought about it for a few seconds. All right then, he said, if you promise to return him tomorrow. Matilda staggered back to her own empty house, carrying the tall cage in both hands. We're going to stop. I have some more questions. How are parrots able to talk? Very strange. I don't know many animals that are able to talk or say something that makes them sound human. And my second question is, how many different species of parrots are there? There must be different types. I'm interested to know which other species there are. I'm going to continue reading and you're going to continue following along. Make sure you think about what questions you might have as we stop. There was a large fireplace in the dining room, and she now set about wedging the cage up the chimney and out of sight. This wasn't so easy, but she managed it in the end. Hello, 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 the bird called down to her. Hello, hello. Shut up, you nut, Matilda said, and she went out to wash the soot off her hands. That evening, while the mother and the father, the brother and Matilda were having supper, as usual in the living room, in front of the television, a voice came loud and clear from the dining room across the hall. Hello, 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 it said. Harry, cried the mother, turning white. There's someone in the house. I heard a voice. So did I, the brother said. Matilda jumped up and switched off the telly. Shh, she said. Listen. They all stopped eating and sat there very tense, listening. Hello, 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 came the voice again. There it is, cried the brother. It's burglars, hissed the mother. They're in the dining room. I think they are, the father said, sitting tight. Then go and catch them, Harry, hissed the mother. Go out and collar them red-handed. The father didn't move. He seemed in no hurry to dash off and be a hero. His face had turned grey. Get on with it, hissed the mother. They're probably after the silver. The husband wiped his lips nervously with his napkin. Why don't we all go and look together, he said. Come on then, the brother said. Come on, Mum. They're definitely in the dining room, Matilda whispered. I'm sure they are. The mother grabbed a poker from the fireplace. The father took a golf club that was standing in the corner. The brother seized a table lamp, ripping the plug out of its socket. Matilda took the knife she had been eating with, and all four of them crept towards the dining room door, the father keeping well behind the others. I'm going to stop again. Which one of the Wormwoods will discover that Matilda has hidden a parrot in the house? I wonder, will they discover it? Or will they continue to think that it was somebody else that was in the house? And my next question is, how does Mrs. Wormwood feel about Mr. Wormwood not taking control of the situation? It seems like Mr. Wormwood is hiding behind Mrs. Wormwood and the rest of the family. I wonder how she feels about that. I would like you to think about what questions you have. Say your question out loud or to someone at home, and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press pause now and then press play. Great, let's continue. Hello, 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 came the voice again. Come on, Matilda cried as she burst into the room, brandishing her knife. Stick 'em up, she yelled. We've caught you. The others followed her, waving their weapons. Then they stopped. They stared around the room. There was no one there. There's no one here, the father said, greatly relieved. I heard him, Harry, the mother shrieked, still quaking. I distinctly heard his voice, so did you. I'm certain I heard him, Matilda cried. He's in here somewhere. She began searching behind the sofa and behind the curtains. Then came the voice once again, soft and spooky this time. Rattle my bones, it said. Rattle my bones. They all jumped, including Matilda, who was a pretty good actress. They stared round the room. There was still no one there. It's a ghost, Matilda said. Heaven help us, cried the mother, clutching her husband round the neck. I know it's a ghost, Matilda said. I've heard it here before. This room is haunted. I thought you knew that. Save us, the mother screamed, almost throttling her husband. I'm getting out of here, the father said, greyer than ever now. They all fled, slamming the door behind them. The next afternoon, Matilda managed to get a rather sooty and grumpy parrot down from the chimney and out of the house without being seen. She carried it through the back door and ran with it all the way to Fred's house. Did it behave itself? Fred asked her. We had a lovely time with it, Matilda said. My parents adored it. And that's the end of our chapter. Before we finish, I have 2 final questions. I wonder where in the house the Wormwoods' dining room was. They thought that there were burglars in the house, so I wonder, is it at the front of the house? Or is it at the back? Would burglars have been able to get in easily? Is that why they thought there might have been burglars? Or was it because they were really scared? And my second question, which other animals could Matilda have used to trick the Wormwoods? Parrots seem quite clever. They can speak, which means that can easily trick the family. I wonder which other animals Matilda could have used. What questions do you have? Make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book now. Press pause and then press play once you are ready. Well done. We are finished our final Asking Questions Destination Reader session for the week. I am so impressed with all of the questions that you have. Make sure that you continue to ask questions even if you're reading your own personal books at home. This will really help you. You could even add to your final list of all your questions that you've had so far. We would love to read them. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you next week for our next and new strategy of the week. Goodbye.